A Thug's Passion by Venny Haynes. Part 1. Red Shadows and Blue Smoke. They called her Razor because she moved sharp and silent, never sloppy, never loud unless she had to be. Born into the Bloods, raised where loyalty was thicker than fear, she learned early that survival meant reading the room before the room read you. Still, Razor was different. She didn't wear red. No flags. No loud colors. Just black tees, clean sneakers, and eyes that clocked everything. If you knew, you knew. If you didn't, you never would. Then there was Murder. He walked with that calm Inae's hands loose, shoulders relaxed, smile slow like he knew secrets the world wasn't ready for. A Crip by blood, by block, by code. But Murder didn't advertise either. No blue rags hanging, no loud talk. He kept it neutral, stayed fly under the radar, moved like a chess player in a city full of checkers. They met on accident, or maybe fate had bad intentions. A late-night pop-up spot on the east side, music thumping, smoke heavy, laughter mixed with tension. Razor felt him before she saw him. That stare. The kind that doesn't undress you, it studies you. Murder watched the way she stood her ground, the way people shifted when she walked past. He couldn't place it, but he knew one thing: she wasn't regular. They talked like strangers with history. Laughing, trading stories, vibing heavy. The chemistry was reckless, dangerous, the kind that makes your gut tighten for no reason. Razor clocked his energy immediately, disciplined, territorial, street smart. She knew what he was, or at least what side he probably belonged to, but she said nothing. Curiosity can be louder than caution. Murder, on the other hand, had no idea. He just knew she felt familiar, too familiar. Like trouble dressed in beauty. Like a woman who could either save you or ruin you and wouldn't apologize for either. He didn't see red. He didn't sense blood. He just saw a Razor. As the night ended, they exchanged numbers. No names asked. No sets mentioned. No questions that could ruin the moment. Just tension. Just attraction. Just two enemies walking towards something neither of them could see yet. And somewhere in the dark, the streets were already whispering, "This love ain't safe." A Thug's Passion by Venny Haynesworth. Part 2. Smoke Signals and Dangerous Feelings. Razor felt it first, the shift. After that night, Murder stayed on her mind longer than he should have. She hated that. Feelings were liabilities where she came from. Attachments got people hurt, killed. But every time her phone lit up with his name, her chest tightened like she was stepping into something she couldn't step back from. Murder didn't rush her. That was the problem. He moved patient, intentional. Late-night calls. Quiet pull-ups. Long drives with the windows cracked and the city breathing around them. No pressure, no promises, just energy. The kind that sneaks under your skin before you realize you're already hooked. He felt safe to her, and that scared her more than danger ever could. Murder felt it too, even if he didn't have words for it. Razor made him want things he stopped wanting a long time ago. Peace, consistency. Somebody who saw him beyond the name, beyond the rep. When she looked at him, it wasn't like she was judging, she was measuring. And somehow, he liked that. But the streets don't let love grow without testing it. The first clue came subtle. They were posted up outside a corner store when a car rolled by too slow. Too quiet. Razor's body reacted before her mind, jaw tight, shoulders squared, hand drifting just enough to be noticed. Murder clocked it instantly. Not fear. Training. "You good?" he asked casually. "I'm always good," she said, eyes still tracking the car until it disappeared. Something about that answer sat heavy with him. Later that night. A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 3, Later that night. Later that night, the city felt quieter but heavier. Razor sat in the passenger seat, window cracked, streetlights sliding over her face like secrets passing by. Murder drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting too close to her thigh without touching it. That space between them was loud. Loud with things unsaid. Loud with tension that didn't need words. Neither of them spoke much. They didn't need to. When he pulled over, it wasn't planned. Just instinct. An empty overlook above the city, engine ticking, bass from a distant party floating up the hill. Murder finally looked at her, not the playful look, not the guarded one, but the real one. The kind that asks a question without asking. "You dangerous?" he said low, almost smiling. Razor smirked. "You like dangerous?" He did. That was the problem. She leaned closer, close enough for him to smell her perfume mixed with smoke and something wild. Her hand brushed his chest, slow, deliberate. Murder's jaw tightened. He didn't pull away. He didn't rush her either. Control was his thing. But she was testing it. Inside, Razor was battling herself. Every laugh, every touch, every second with him made her forget the line she wasn't supposed to cross. She knew exactly what he was, knew his walk, his code, the way he scanned corners. But tonight, she let herself pretend he was just a man. Her man, maybe if only for the night. Murder felt it too. Something about her felt familiar in a way that didn't make sense. The way she stayed calm in silence. The way her eyes never wandered. The way she touched him like she already knew where not to press. It felt like fate. Or a setup. He couldn't tell which, and that scared him. They kissed, but it wasn't soft. It was hungry. Controlled. Like two people trying to taste each other without swallowing the truth. When they pulled back, foreheads touching, breath heavy, Murder whispered, "You ever think about consequences?" Razor met his eyes, unflinching. Every day. She didn't tell him what that really meant. Not yet. And somewhere in the city below them, red and blue lines were already crossing whether they were ready or not. A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 4, Almost Exposed. By morning, the city already knew too much. Razor felt it before anyone said her name. Phones buzzing longer than usual. Texts with no emojis. Missed calls from people who never checked on her like that. The streets had a way of sensing when something was off, and right now, her silence was loud. She pulled up to the block slow. Too slow. Heads turned. Conversations paused mids and ends. One of the homies leaned against a car a little too stiff, eyes following her every step. Razor kept her face calm, posture cold, but inside her chest, her heart was tapping warnings. "You been moving funny lately," one of the girls said, half joking, half not. "Ghosts on us, but outside every night." Razor shrugged. "I got a life." That didn't sit right with them. Someone else chimed in. "Word is, you've been spotted on the other side." Another voice, sharper. "You talking to somebody you shouldn't be?" That was the moment. The air shifted. Not accusations, investigations. They weren't asking because they were curious. They were asking because they already suspected something, and they wanted to see if her face would betray her. Razor didn't blink. "Y'all know me," she said, cool. "I don't wear colors. I don't talk business. And I don't mix lines." Truth wrapped around a lie. Across town, Murder was feeling it too, just in a different way. One of his people mentioned her name casually, like bait. Asked where he'd been spending nights. joked about him being distracted. Murder laughed it off. But his instincts were screaming. Too many coincidences. Too many questions from both sides at the same time. That night, Razor called him. "Something's off," she said quietly. Murder leaned back, jaw tight. "Yeah, I feel it too." Neither of them said what they were really thinking. That the streets were circling. That secrets don't stay buried long. That loving each other might cost more than either of them was ready to pay. They hung up without saying goodbye. And for the first time since they met, distance wasn't choice, it was survival. But the damage was already done. Because when the streets start asking questions, they don't stop until they get answers. A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 5, Blood Ties and Broken Truths. Razor had been lying to herself longer than she realized. It started as a plan. Calculated, cold, clean. Her brother Black was the architect. Black didn't smile much anymore. Not since their father died. Not since the streets whispered the truth they could never prove out loud. King, Murder's older brother, pulled the trigger. Wrong place, old beef, no mercy. Their father bled out on concrete while sirens took their time. And revenge doesn't age. It waits. When Black found out Murder was King's blood, still free, still breathing, that was it. "You get close," Black told her. "Not sloppy, not fast. I want to know how he moves, who he trusts, where he's weak." Razor agreed. That was before Murda's laugh felt real. Before his hands were gentle when nobody was watching. Before she started protecting him without realizing it. Now here she was standing between love and loyalty. Black was done waiting. "You too deep," he snapped one night, pacing. "This ain't about feelings. This about blood. Our blood." Razor's voice cracked. "He ain't king." Black stopped, turned slow. His eyes were hard. "He still wear the same last name." That's when she knew this was going sideways. Black already had people watching Murder, tracking him, learning his patterns, the same way she once did, but now it wasn't curiosity. It was countdown. Meanwhile, Murder was still clueless. Still texting her good morning. Still planning their next link. Still thinking the distance was just pressure, not betrayal. He had no idea the woman he trusted was the same woman standing next to the man sharpening the blade. That night, Razor tried to pull away. Told Murder she needed space. Her voice shook. Murder felt it, but he didn't push. "You safe?" he asked. She swallowed. "Yeah." Lie? Black made his move without telling her. Too many cars. Too many shadows. Razor felt it in her bones and ran heart racing, mind screaming. If Black touched Murder, there was no coming back. No forgiveness. No future. Just blood on blood. Because the cruelest twist of all, Razor was already in love. And love don't stop bullets, but it makes you step in front of them. Somewhere in the dark, Murder was walking into a setup he never saw coming. And Razor had seconds left to decide. Family or fate? A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 6, Love or Fate. The night felt wrong the moment Razor stepped outside. Too quiet. Too many shadows holding their breath. Her phone buzzed once. Black. No message. Just a missed call. That was how he always moved when things were already in motion. Her chest tightened. Across the street, Murd leaned against his car. Hoodie up, curls peeking out, tattoos dark against his skin, comfortable, unaware, trusting the night the way only a man with no warning ever could. Razor watched him like it might be the last time. When Black's car rolled up slow, headlights low, Razor felt her heart split clean in two. This was it. She saw Black step out, first face hard, jaw locked, pain living behind his eyes. Revenge had hollowed him out, left only purpose. Two other figures moved with him, quiet and ready. Murder straightened, sensing something but not enough. Not the truth. "Raze," he called, confused. "What's going on?" She walked toward him, hands shaking. Every step felt like betrayal, no matter which way she turned. Black raised his hand. Not yet, but soon. Razor stepped between them without thinking. "Stop," she said, voice breaking. "Please." Black stared at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. "You choosing him now?" Tears burned her eyes. "I didn't plan to fall, but I did." Murder's brows pulled together. "Fall for what? Somebody tell me what the hell." "You the reason our father dead?" Black snapped, rage spilling out at last. "Your blood did that." Murder froze. "My brother?" His voice dropped. "Nah, you got it twisted." Razor turned to him, tears finally falling. "I was sent to get close to you. I didn't know it would turn into this. I swear." Silence slammed into the alley. Murr looked at her like she'd just shattered the ground under his feet. Hurt? Confusion? Love fighting disbelief. "So all of it was fake?" he asked quietly. "No," she cried. "That's the only part that was real." Black stepped forward, gun lifting. Razor didn't move. She spread her arms wide, standing in front of Murder. "If you pull that trigger," she said, voice steady now, "you gotta go through me." Black's hand shook. This wasn't how revenge was supposed to feel. Murda grabbed Razor's wrist gently, pulling her back just enough to look at her face. "If I walk away tonight," he said, low, "everything changes." She nodded. "I know." Sirens echoed somewhere far off. Someone had talked. The streets always did. Black cursed under his breath, lowering the gun just enough. "Go," he told Murder. "Before I change my mind." Murder hesitated, then leaned in, pressing his forehead to Razor's. "Love shouldn't come from lies," he whispered. But damn, it was real. Then he was gone. Razor collapsed into herself as Black turned away, revenge unfinished, family fractured. That night, nobody won. Only fate did. And somewhere in the city, love and war kept circling each other. Waiting for the next round? A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 7, Aftermath and Consequences. The city didn't forgive. It remembered. After that night, everything changed. Murder disappeared like smoke, no calls, no sightings, no word. Some said he left town. Others said he was laying low, waiting. Razor didn't know which hurt worse. Every corner held his ghost. Every song reminded her of a version of herself that didn't exist anymore. Black moved different now. Revenge unfinished made him restless, paranoid. He slept light, hand near the bed, eyes always searching. Letting Murder walk wasn't mercy, it was weakness in the eyes of the streets. And weakness always sends invitations. That's when the word came down. Old enemies. Out of heavy intentions. They weren't coming for business. They were coming for blood. Razor found out first. A whispered warning from someone who still owed her father respect, a name she hadn't heard in years. A crew known for making examples killing families, not just targets. They asking about you and Black? The voice said. They think tonight unfinished business. Her stomach dropped. She ran straight to Black. They coming? She said. Not just you. Me too. Black didn't react right away. Just stared at the wall, jaw clenched. Enemies he could handle. But Razor? That changed the math. This, my mess, he said finally. I'll handle it. She shook her head. You can't. Not alone. That's when the real twist hit him. Razor hesitated then, said the name she swore she wouldn't. Murder. Black snapped toward her. Absolutely not. He the only one who knows how King moved? She pressed. How his enemies think. And they coming because they think you exposed? Silence. Black was being forced into a choice he never prepared for. Pride or protection. Asking Murda for help meant aligning with the same Crip he hated. It meant swallowing revenge for survival. It meant admitting the war wasn't as simple as he made it. Outside, engines revved in the distance. Too many, too coordinated. Time was up. Black exhaled hard. If I make this call, he said low, everything changes. Razor met his eyes. Everything already did. Across town, Murder's phone lit up for the first time in days. Razor calling. He stared at it, chest tight. Some bonds don't break clean. Some wars don't end when you walk away. And as enemies rolled into the city, hunting siblings with the same last name, the question wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about who survives the night. A Thug Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 8. Blood Makes Strange Allies. The call came through, broken and rushed. Gunfire in the background. Razor screaming his name. Black didn't hesitate this time. He dialed the one number he swore he'd never call. Murder, he said when the line picked up. They got my sister. Silence. Then Murder's voice, cold, focused, all emotion locked away. Where? That's how it started. No apologies. No forgiveness. Just two enemies bound by one woman bleeding in the middle of a war neither of them controlled anymore. They moved fast, too fast, to think about the past. Murder drove like the devil was chasing him. Black loaded magazines with hands that still remembered grief. Neither trusted the other, but both trusted one thing. They'd die before letting Razor go. They found her in an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. Flames licking the night, sirens far enough not to matter. The enemy crew was deep outnumbering them, confident, sloppy. Bad mistake. Murder and Black moved like they'd trained together their whole lives. No words, just instinct. Covering angles, pulling each other back from death by inches. For a moment, the city held its breath. They reached Razor. She was hurt but alive. Murder, she whispered, tears cutting through soot and blood. I knew you'd come. Black grabbed her, pulling her close. Relief hit him so hard, his knees almost buckled. That's when the tragedy struck. A single shot cracked through the chaos. Nobody saw it coming. Black felt the impact before the sound finished echoing. His body jerked, then stilled. Razor screamed as he fell, blood blooming dark against his chest. Murder caught him before he hit the ground. Black's eyes locked on his sister. Protect her, he rasped. Don't let my hate finish what they started. Razor sobbed, pressing her hands to the wound, begging, screaming, breaking apart in real time. Murder held Black as life, slipped away enemy, turned ally, turned ghost. Sirens finally closed in. The enemy scattered. The war paused, but the cost was already paid. Later, as dawn cracked the sky open, Murder stood beside Razor, both of them hollowed out by the same loss. Black was gone. The past was buried with him. Razor leaned into Murder, voice shaking. Now what? Murder wrapped an arm around her, eyes dark but steady. Now, he said, we live. So his death meant something. But the streets were still watching. And love born in blood never gets a clean ending. A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 9, Revenge versus Redemption. The city moved on like nothing happened. But Razor didn't. Black's funeral was quiet too, quiet for a man who lived loud. The streets showed respect, but respect don't bring nobody back. Razor stood dressed in black on black, long hair hiding her face, heart split open and stitched together with rage. Martyr stood a few steps behind her. Not close enough to claim her. Not far enough to abandon her. Ever since that night, the question hung between them like smoke that wouldn't clear. Do you avenge the dead? Or protect the living? Razor wanted blood. Every laugh she heard felt disrespectful. Every sunrise felt unfair. She replayed Black's last words over and over, but grief twisted them into something sharp. They still breathing? She said one night, voice flat. The ones who did this? Murder nodded. He knew who she meant. He knew where they were. He also knew where revenge led because he'd walked that road and buried pieces of himself along the way. If you go after them, he said carefully, you don't come back the same. She snapped. I already ain't the same. That's when the truth came out. Murda told her everything about King, about the lies he'd believed, about how violence only multiplied pain until nobody remembered what started it. His voice cracked when he admitted he was tired. Tired of funerals. Tired of being the reason somebody else cried. Razor listened. Didn't interrupt. Tears slid down her face, but her eyes stayed hard. So what? She asked. We just let it go. No, he said. We let it end. That night, Razor went alone to the place Black used to take her when things got heavy. She talked to him like he was still there. Told him how angry she was. How empty. How scared she was to choose peace because peace felt like betrayal. The wind moved through the trees like an answer. When she came back, she made her choice. The next move wasn't loud. It was strategic. Instead of guns, they used information. Instead of revenge, exposure. The crew responsible started falling not from bullets, but from indictments, warrants, betrayals within their own circle. The streets ate them alive. Slow? Clean. Final. It didn't bring Black back. But it stopped the cycle. Months later, Razor stood on a different block, watching kids play where violence used to live. Murder stood beside her, hand brushing hers, not claiming, just present. You still think about it? He asked. Every day, she said. But I don't let it own me. He nodded. That's redemption. She looked at him then, not as an enemy, not as a reminder, but as a man who chose growth when destruction was easier. Love didn't erase the past. It survived it. And in a city built on revenge, choosing redemption became the most dangerous move of all. A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 10, Just a Baby. Back when Kashmir was just a baby, the world felt softer but more dangerous at the same time. He was small enough to fit in the crook of Martyr's arm. Tiny fingers curling around his father's chain like it was his anchor. His cries weren't loud yet, more like questions. like he was already asking what kind of world he'd been born into. Razor barely slept, not because of diapers or late-night feedings, but because peace still felt borrowed. Every sound outside made her sit up. Every unfamiliar car made her heart race. Motherhood sharpened her instincts in ways the streets never did. "This city don't get him," she'd whisper while rocking Kashmir at night. "He don't owe it nothing." Murder changed too. He stopped moving, reckless altogether. No unnecessary meetings. No late nights that couldn't be explained. He held his son like he was holding his own second chance. For the first time, fear wasn't about dying, it was about losing. Kashmir was loved heavy. Too heavy for a world that liked taking things. Word traveled fast, like it always did. Murder got a kid. Razor a mother now. Some saw it as growth. Others saw it as weakness. That's when the first quiet warning came. A gift left on their doorstep. No note. Just a soft baby blanket folded neatly, with red and blue stitching woven together. Not a threat, but a message. "We see him." Razor's hands shook as she held it. Murder didn't panic. He didn't rage. He burned it. That night, they made a vow over Kashmir's crib. "No more cycles," Razor said. "No more blood," Murder added. "No more letting the streets decide our future." Kashmir slept through it, all peaceful, innocent, unaware that his life already carried weight. But even then, as a baby, the city already knew his name. Because children born from crossed lines don't just inherit love. They inherit attention. And attention, in that city, was never harmless. A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 11, The Threat Named Kashmir. They never said his name out loud at first. That's how Razor knew it was serious. When enemies stop speaking names, it's because they're trying to erase futures, not people. Kashmir was only 5, bright-eyed and fearless, already walking with confidence like he owned whatever room he stepped into. Too much confidence for a child born of legends. And legends scare people. It started small. A car following too close from his school. A stranger asking questions that didn't make sense. A photo sent to Murder's phone Kashmir on a playground, time-stamped. No message. No threat. Just proof. Razor lost it. That baby didn't choose none of this, she snapped, pacing the floor. He not a symbol? He not a message? But the streets didn't care. To them, Kashmir was more than a child. He was bloodlines crossed. A reminder that old rules had been broken, and somebody wanted payment. Murder went cold in a way Razor hadn't seen since the war days. Quiet, focused, protective to the point of obsession. He doubled security, changed routes, stopped smiling. Redemption had made him soft, but fatherhood made him lethal. "They won't touch him," he promised. "Over my body." The twist came when Razor learned who was behind it. Not old enemies. New ones. Young wolves who never lived the losses, never buried the bodies, never learned the cost of hate. To them, Kashmir wasn't a child, he was an opportunity. A way to make a name, to spark a war and come out legends. They called it resetting the board. One night, Razor stood over Kashmir while he slept, curls spread across his pillow, chest rising slow and peaceful. Tears fell silently. She finally understood something her father never got to say out loud. The hardest part of breaking cycles is surviving long enough to protect what comes after you. Murder joined her, resting his forehead against hers. "They want war," he said quietly. Razor wiped her face, eyes hardening not with rage, but resolve. Then we don't give them one, she replied. We end this different. But even as they planned, even as they prepared to move smarter, quieter, cleaner, the streets were already choosing sides. And Kashmir? He laughed the next morning, innocent and unaware, carrying a name powerful enough to shake the city. A name somebody had decided. Was a threat? A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 12. Protect the Prince. They stopped living loud. That was the first rule. No more predictable routines. No more familiar routes. Kashmir didn't walk to school anymore. He was driven. Switched cars mid-trip, faces watching faces. Razor became shadows and instincts again. Murder became silence and strategy. The prince had guards know whether he knew it or not. Kashmir felt the change. Why everybody acting weird? He asked one night, swinging his legs from the couch. Razor knelt in front of him, smoothing his curls. Because you special, she said softly, and special things get protected. He smiled, proud, innocent. If only he knew. The second rule was no retaliation. Murder had names, locations, open shots, but every time his hand itched toward violence, he remembered Black, remembered the promise made in blood and grief. Don't let hate finish the story. So they moved smarter. Information flowed. Allies formed in unlikely place, OGs from both sides who were tired of burying children. Quiet agreements were made. Lines weren't erased, but they were respected when it came to Kashmir. You don't touch a child, especially not one everybody's watching. Still, danger tested them. One afternoon, a car crept too close at a red light. Murda's body tensed, already shifting to shield Kashmir in the back seat. Razor's hand was steady on her lap, heart pounding but eyes calm. The car rolled past. A message without words. That night, they made the final decision. We can't raise him in a war zone, Razor said. Even a quiet one. Murder nodded. Then we build him a kingdom somewhere else. Not running. Relocating. They started laying groundwork, new city, new names in certain places, money cleaned and legit. Kashmir would grow up knowing love first, not fear. But before peace could fully take root, Razor did one last thing. She sent word through the streets, not a threat, not a challenge. A declaration. Kashmir is off limits. Touch him, and the past you don't remember will remind you who built this city. The message traveled fast. Because even in chaos, royalty is recognized. As Kashmir slept that night, guarded by two parents who had crossed hell and back, Razor whispered to him, You don't gotta be a king to be powerful, baby. Just be kind. Outside, the city watched. Some respected the line. Some plotted to cross it. And protecting the prince meant one truth would always remain. Peace is earned every day. A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 13. Testing the line. The line had been drawn. Everybody knew it. Kashmir was off limits. But lines don't exist for people who want to see how much damage they can do without crossing the mat. At least not all the way. It started with pressure. A brick through a business window Murder had ties to. A warning spray-painted on a wall 2 blocks from where they stayed. A car tailing them just long enough to be noticed. Then disappearing. No shots. No direct threats. Just reminders. Razor felt it in her chest every time they left the house. That old instinct, the one that never slept, was wide awake again. She watched Kashmir closer now, hand always within reach, smile steady even when her nerves were screaming. "They testing us," she said one night. Murder nodded. "They want to see if we'll react." Because reaction meant weakness. Reaction meant war. The real test came on a Sunday. Broad daylight. Public place. Kashmir was in the back seat, humming to himself, feet kicking against the leather. Razor sat up front, eyes scanning reflections. Murder drove calm, controlled. Then a car pulled up beside them at a stoplight. Too close. The window rolled down just enough. A young face, smirking, brave because he thought history didn't apply to him. "Cute kid," the boy said. The air went dead. Murder didn't move. Didn't reach. Didn't speak. Razor turned slowly, her eyes locking on the boy with something colder than rage. "Careful," she said softly. Admiration can sound like disrespect. The light turned green. The car peeled off fast. Kashmir looked up. "Why, that man's staring at me." Razor smiled and kissed his head. "Because you shine, baby." But that night, the city buzzed. Word spread fast. The line had been touched. OGs started calling. Old allies checked in. Even enemies whispered warnings to their own people. Because testing the line didn't just threaten Razor and Murder, it threatened the fragile peace everyone had gotten comfortable with. Murder stood on the balcony later, city lights flickering like memories. Razor joined him, resting her head against his shoulder. "We still choosing peace?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. Peace don't mean passive. Below them, the streets watched, waiting to see if legends still bit when provoked. Kashmir slept inside, safe for now, dreaming innocent dreams. But the test had been issued. And whether the city liked it or not, the next move would define everything. A Thug Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 14. What the Prince Became. They tried to raise him gentle. That's the part nobody talks about. Razor made sure Kashmir knew love before power. Murder taught him discipline before dominance. He grew up in clean houses, good schools, quiet neighborhoods where nobody knew his last name or what it carried. But memory has its own bloodline. Kashmir never forgot the looks, the pauses, the way rooms shifted when he entered. He remembered being 5 years old, sitting in the back seat, feeling the air go tight when strangers stared too long. He remembered his parents' hands, always close, always ready. Protection like that leaves an imprint. By the time he was grown, the city knew his name again. Not because his parents announced it, because he moved like legacy. Kashmir was calm, calculated, ruthless, in a way that didn't require noise. He didn't chase respect, he expected it. People felt it when he walked in. This wasn't someone who needed to prove himself. He already knew what the world tried to do to him before he even understood why. "You ever think about it?" Razor asked him once. "The past?" Kashmir gave a half smile. "I think about the future more." That's what scared people. He wasn't angry. He wasn't reckless. He was prepared. The ones who once whispered about him being a threat watched him now with regret. Because Kashmir didn't move off emotion, he moved off memory. And memory taught him one lesson early. They don't come for you unless you matter. Murder saw it in his son's eyes, the same look he once carried before life broke him open. Pride mixed with fear sat heavy in his chest. "You don't gotta be hard," he told him. Kashmir nodded respectfully. "I know, but I gotta be ready." The city felt the shift. New rules formed quietly. People chose their words carefully. Old enemies stayed old but distant, because the prince had grown, and he didn't need a crown to command a room. Razor watched her son one night, standing under streetlights that once spelled danger, now bending around him like they recognized his name. She whispered to herself, half prayer, half truth. Lord, we protected him from the streets, but we couldn't protect the streets from him, because Kashmir didn't forget who came for him. And the city was about to learn the difference between a protected child and a grown man who remembers everything. A Thug's Passion by Venny Hainsworth. Part 15, Legacy Final Chapter. Kashmir stood where the city met itself. Not the loud parts, not the broken parts, the quiet in between where decisions mattered more than reputations. By now, everybody knew who he was. Not because he announced it, because nothing moved without him knowing. He built differently than the ones before him. No reckless wars, no public chaos. He moved with influence, not intimidation. People respected him not out of fear but because he was fair, precise, and unforgettable. Still, the past kept knocking. Old enemies, old grudges, people who remembered his parents' names and thought the son was just a softer sequel. They were wrong. Razor saw it first, the weight Kashmir carried, the way silence followed him, the way power bends even when you don't ask it to. She worried the streets would take from him what they once tried to steal for him. Murder said less, but felt more. One night, the three of them sat together like old times. No guards, no phones, just family. You know you don't owe the city anything, Razor said softly. Kashmir looked at them, really looked at the woman who chose love over bloodshed, at the man who chose redemption over revenge. I owe you, he said. That's the difference. The final test came quietly. An opportunity to wipe out every remaining threat. One move. Clean, permanent. The old way. Kashmir thought about the boy. He was the child who slept protected, unaware. He thought about Black, about the cost of unfinished revenge, about what legends leave behind when they choose destruction. And then he chose differently. He dismantled the last of the old hate without blood, took power away from people who abused it, gave opportunity where fear used to live. The streets didn't explode. They evolved. Years later, people would tell stories about Razor, the woman who loved across lines. About murder, the man who walked away from war and lived. And about Kashmir the prince, who became a king without a crown. Not ruthless. Not soft. Balanced. Legacy isn't what you destroy. It's what still stands. After you choose peace. When violence would have been easier. And in a city raised on bloodlines and boundaries. Their family became proof of one truth. Love didn't end the war. Choice did. The end.